That was 1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3,
go.
It's on.
No, do you do it on 3 or after 3?
I do it after 3.
Okay.
But without the go.
Oh, okay.
So
well, how do you know when to go?
I know.
You go on 3.
On 3 or after 3?
After 3.
Oh, no.
Then you got to say go. 1, 2, 3, go.
All right, man. Well, this is Get It Raw, and we're here with one of my favorite fucking people in the world. I had to say favorite fucking people in the world because you are. You know, you're like a brother from another mother to me. Todd Handley. You know, he's like the Mary Poppins for music. Is that a good explanation? Is that a good intro?
Am I supposed to say something now?
Yeah, you're supposed to say a spoonful of sugar, right?
I am not song. Mary Poppins, no.
Yes, you are.
No.
You hold the tuba like it's a fucking umbrella. Yes, you do. You know it's true.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that.
So anyway, we're here with Todd today. We're going to talk all things Todd, and I'd love to hear, what do you do? Introduce yourself. Tell everybody what you do and what you think and where you want to go and what you want to be and what your dreams are and how you failed and why you cry yourself to sleep at night.
That's going to be a long story.
Well, we have time.
My name's Todd, and I am a musician. I'm a mentor. I do a lot of things. I wear a lot of hats. And yeah, so a little bit about me, a little backstory is I grew up here in Fort Myers.
Son of a bitch. We didn't want to tell people. Fuck. Now they know where we are. They may have figured it out with the second podcast.
Technically, he said here in Fort Myers, but we're not in Fort Myers. I'm not in Fort Myers.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. In Florida. You grew up here in Florida.
I didn't say Florida. There could be another Fort Myers somewhere.
Oh.
Sounds like something you'd find in Texas. Texas has a lot of forts.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, well, we just we're in Texas.
So Fort Myers, and went away to school to pursue music education, and came back and am kind of all things music. You know, I'm a performer. I teach. I manage a music store. I'm all things. I'm like the music man.
You are. That's a better analogy.
I'm like not Mary Poppins. I'm the music man.
You are. You're like the Pied Piper for like tubas.
Yeah.
What creatures or follows the tuba as opposed to the piper? Because he led the rats, or was it children? Or
the children, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Todd's case, he's like the size of the instrument does count. So you're probably
no, it doesn't. It just means you have to carry something heavier. That's all.
Is that right?
Yeah. You got a heavier package.
So what, you like get rabbits to follow you or something like that? Or
no,
elephants.
Elephants.
I'm thinking tuba, probably elephants. It just dawned on me. This whole time I was thinking tuba was the long. But no, it's the big.
Yeah, it's the big one,
round one.
Yeah, the trombone is just like
That's exactly how it sounds too, right? Like
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's exactly what a trombone is like. Tuba is a huge instrument. It's they have different instruments in the tuba family. The sousaphone is the marching instrument that you're thinking of, with the giant bell and wraps around the body and it's marching. Okay. I think of Stuart in the Stewie and the Family Guy, and he's following this guy. Bum, 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 bum. Right? And that's the tuba, the sousaphone. The tuba that I play most is a concert tuba. It sits in my lap and it's giant, and and it's the lowest instrument in the wind family. Okay. So of all the winds, it has the lowest register there.
The lowest register.
Yeah, that's not quite the way I would normally explain it, but that's the way it is.
So why don't you explain it how you would normally explain it?
Well, it plays the lowest notes. It's like the
Okay.
double bass, so it plays the lowest notes in the orchestra.
I mean, come on. You of all people know how musically illiterate I am.
I know.
Literally.
I tried to teach you how to sing one time.
Yeah.
I gave up
we
on
do
that.
not need to recreate now.
No.
I'm not a
No.
quitter, but I quit that one.
You did.
That was one time sitting there at the piano trying to play with Ray
Yeah.
Raw,
And you got very frustrated. We were in college. I paid for. I was taking piano because I wanted to learn how to play the piano, and I asked him to help me like with the notes because I can't hear the notes. I can't discriminate. You know, what was the damn thing you were telling me? You were like raw day. What was it? What you were trying to just go over the basics?
like do re mi fa
Do, re,
sol.
yeah, whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it. I couldn't
the
do
sound of music. Do
Right.
dear? No.
And how long did we spend on that before you said, "Listen, you just give up"?
I was pretty patient, and
I don't think you were.
You were a terrible student. You were awful.
I did my best.
No, you didn't. No.
I did everything I could. I did everything you asked me to do. What are you talking
Except
about?
practice.
I did practice. I practiced in the shower. I practiced in the car.
Not the right kind of practice.
I practiced in bed without the girlfriend.
Do, dear.
I was
Go to sleep. Shut up.
Well, there was a little bit more rhythm involved. It was like do, a deer.
Yeah, I bet there was some rhythm. Yeah.
Yeah, she said, just get it over with. No, so okay. First off, let's explain how we know each other. Back in the day, I would go to church, and believe it or not, we're Baptist or former Baptist. Now we're I don't know
Agnostic.
For
me. Yeah.
Oh, for you, I'm anarchist. Just everything anarchy.
Is that a religion?
That's a religion.
I didn't think that was a religion.
I'm a George Carlin fanatic, so
I think you made
I
that
believe I pray to Joe Pesci and I worship the sun god.
I think you make that up.
Yeah. Well, so we were going to church. I was going there for a while. I guess he was going there for a while, and there was a little hiatus. So we hadn't like seen each other. So I'm going to tell them the story that I remember, just so you know, okay?
I'll tell the truth when you're done.
Well, we all know that I'm telling the truth. So I go to I'm going up to Sunday school, right? And I'm in this like rec room, and there's like a little hockey table, and I'm playing with like I think it was my brother or maybe another kid, and this guy comes in with a cup of coffee. You know, we're like 13 years old, and he's got a cup of coffee.
I think it was the foosball table, right?
No, it wasn't foosball. It was the hockey. It was the air hockey.
Air hockey, yeah. Maybe it was air hockey.
Air hockey. And he comes over, and trying to be a badass, he goes, "That's my game. that's my paddle."
It was, damn it.
I said, really? He goes, "Yeah." And I'm not going to let you play.
I'm
Give
the
me my
king of
paddle.
the playground, bitch.
Right. Now, at that point, he had just put that cup of coffee from that styrofoam cup down on the table, right? So I put the paddle down, and he's like, "I didn't say you could play." I said, "Okay." So I picked up the cup of coffee, and I threw it in his face.
Ooh.
Right.
Was that hot coffee?
It was hot coffee, yeah.
No shit.
It wasn't like scalding hot. I don't have burns to prove this story, but it was, as I recall, it was pretty hot.
Yeah. And I was like, "All right, motherfucker, let's go."
In church.
That's all I remember.
It almost came to blows in church.
In church. And then we've been best friends ever since.
Yeah.
Now, I can't remember, but I know you were like, "Motherfucker, why would you throw a cup of coffee in my face?" And you were like,
I probably
you were
cowered.
pissed.
It's one of, whenever you stand up to the bully and they kind of cower a little bit. That's kind of the way I remember it.
Okay, so I did tell the truth.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be
Yeah,
sure.
I think you did.
Okay, good. Now
I was trying to deflect.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
But then, like, ever since then, and I don't even know how it went from that to our relationship now, but we had the same friends. And
A lot of times coming close to blows. Like,
True.
there are times that we were ready to fist fight over a word.
Yeah.
The meaning of a word.
Even now, I just want to strangle the fucking shit out of him, you know? But,
That sounds like a normal relationship for Ray.
It does. Yeah,
We've been there.
absolutely. Yeah.
We've
No,
been
totally.
yeah. The people I love the most are the people I really want to kill.
And you really
It
piss
goes
off
both
a
ways.
lot.
That's right.
It goes both ways.
Yeah. But,
you
you know,
just
like,
pester the shit out of us until we
that's
are
how I
ready
knew.
to kill you.
I told you this. That's how I knew my wife was my wife. I woke up in the morning, and I looked over, and I go, "Oh man, she's the most beautiful thing in the world. I am the luckiest person in the world. where would I be if I didn't have her? I'd probably be dead somewhere in a ditch, and I'm just thinking about how lucky I am. And then the next thought was, where could I hide the body?
Oh, God.
Like, that's the woman I'm going to marry.
Oh, God.
And that's why I called you to get a loan so I could buy the engagement ring. I knew right then.
That was the moment, huh?
That was the moment. That was how I knew. Yeah, murder at first sight.
Wow.
But I haven't
I don't
killed
know
her
that
yet.
I'd tell anybody that. I think I'd keep that to myself in the
It's out there.
future.
It's out there.
I don't know, because I've heard you explain that or say that before, but I feel like you explained it differently, like about hiding the body. Whose body are you hiding?
Well, I think it's pretty self-evident as I'm looking at my wife.
Hers?
Well, yeah, because I'm trying to explain to people when they say, how did you know she was the one for you? And I say something like, well, I realize how lucky I am. She's beautiful. Like, I couldn't do any better. And in the same, like, thought, I'm like, all right, we fight a lot. There's a lot of animosity sometimes. I know she wants to try to, like, kill me. She's probably tired of me, Like, who's going to, come on, really? Women put up with a lot of shit, especially my wife. And so I'm thinking to myself,
especially your wife.
And well,
here's one
ditto,
for you.
Ditto.
I know,
okay,
but
ditto.
here's one for you. What do you think she was thinking at this time? I bet she was probably thinking, where could I hide his body?
I'm pretty sure she's thought that, and I'm pretty sure she's not waiting until the next morning to think that. I'm pretty sure she thinks that when she comes to bed and sees me asleep.
Yeah, every time she sees your face.
She has told me in the past, I know where you sleep, indicating, you can't hide from me.
I think that's normal relationship stuff, though.
Well,
and that's the same with us. When we were kids, it was all normal relationship stuff where there's moments where you want to strangle the person, and then there's moments of absolute bliss, right?
Right.
And so it's just the progression of a relationship, as long as it's just jokes, right?
As long as you're joking. Well, I mean, like, and I'm sure, from your experiences, before, the people you love and the people that you hold in that inner circle are probably the same people that you go through a lot of shit with, and you don't put your shit on other people. You don't take shit out on other people that you don't know, but you take it out on the people you love. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel the same way about you sometimes.
Yeah.
Where can I hide your body? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. Wink, wink. You can't see that, but wink, wink. I'm joking. But anyway, that's how we became, best friends. And we had a circle of friends, which, everybody that listens to this podcast will come to know eventually. And I'm sorry for that. But they're a great group of guys. And they're like my brothers. And he grew up with me. We've talked before. I grew up on this other side of the tracks. I had a father who wasn't around and was doing God knows what. And I had a mother who was like bona fide crazy, like Sybil, right? And I'm trying to help take care of my brothers. Well, these guys are the ones that I depended on. Whenever there was something going down, I could call them up and know that like within a minute they'd be there for me. So this is like, he's like, like my best friend. So, well, you are my best friend, like my best friend.
There aren't many of us. There's only a few that can stand your ass.
As my kid would say, I like you. Okay. So, but wouldn't you say from like your experience as an educator, because you do a lot. You have like you said before, you wear a lot of different hats. You run a music store, you manage employees, you deal with the financials, you put in bids to like school systems and other enterprises to like, run contracts with your music business. You're repairing instruments as well. You also are a performer. You perform in a number of different groups, I believe. You also educate and teach, music to children as well as adults. At the same time, you've got a whole bunch of different hats, but as your perspective and your hopefully your eventual wife, if you're hearing this, I hope he's getting the ring. But she's also an educator.
Don't jinx me.
She's also a musical educator.
Yeah.
And so from your perspective as an educator, what how does that role of like, anger and like what we just talked about, that abuse, plays into a child or a person's relationship with you when they're learning.
Are you talking like about your experience or or my experience? You say abuse, like verbal, or
Well, I felt like you abused me pretty heavily when you were teaching me how to sing.
yeah. Well, you deserve that.
And you were not
terrible.
successful. Oh.
No, I think education and in particular music education is really important. Same as sports, it's got a lot of the similarities to what people learn in sports: the discipline, the teamwork, and all of that. And it has a lot of those things that students can learn, teaching you how to practice and things that you have to really work on to be good. And it carries on into life, these life skills that we're trying to teach kids. And how to manage anger is one of them. We get really frustrated, like when you were singing and you weren't any good at it, it gets really frustrating.
How dare you?
But it also takes resiliency, and it takes you working at something. They say 10,000 hours until you're great at something, right? And you have to be willing to put that time in. And so there's a lot of things that we can learn through music, but also have to be willing to teach and understand it and see those things in ourselves a lot of times too.
So, like when you're approaching a new client, and let's just stay with the education from this perspective. When you're approaching a new client to teach them any type of musical instrument, what is your approach? How do you go about that to build that relationship and to develop the attributes?
I'm here to encourage, and it's like parenting. It's like anything else. If you're teaching or trying to educate somebody on diet, on anything, you're there to encourage them. And encourage them to do those things, the importance of practice, the importance of following through with it, and I think everything that we deal with in life has these similarities that we just need to be willing to see, the discipline to cook your food all the time. I've been struggling with food recently, so it's something that is on my mind a lot, but that discipline and the willingness to take the time and energy to do it is really important.
Why is that a struggle? Why is it difficult to cook your food? Because you're
just
so busy?
From a time standpoint. Yeah, just from a time standpoint. There's a lot of things that consume your time in adulthood. I often say adulting sucks.
Adulting does fucking suck. I don't think there's an adult out there that says, "Oh, it's great to be an adult." No,
adulting sucks, and so especially having my own business and playing and having to get my name out there and advertise. I've got to play in a lot of groups. I've got to stay in touch with my teaching and remembering why I'm doing this in the first place is to pursue music education. And so yeah, it takes a lot of time. And when you prep and you have to cook and you're getting home at 10 o'clock at night, it's tough. It's hard to do. It's a lot easier to go through the drive-through and get French fries and hamburger than it is to make a decent meal at home.
You're in the rat race. But I don't know if I would say that when you were teaching me, you were very encouraging, because I'm pretty sure there was a couple times you told me there was no crying in music.
You have no idea how encouraging I was. Think about this, and I think you forget this sometimes.
I put in the 10,000 hours.
Even though you may not have become a professional singer, why were you wanting to sing in the first place?
Oh, no, I'm just always interested in different things.
But at this time, you were into theater, right?
No.
This was in theater, and you were doing this box theater in school when we were in college, and you wanted to sing because a lot of that, or how to project your voice, you had a goal in mind. You wanted it.
Yeah, you're right. I was about to graduate.
Go into a different. And so you had this goal in mind, and at this point, singing and learning how to sing. Of course, I was encouraging. Yeah, go sing. Go do. Even if you're terrible, go do it. Put yourself out there.
Well, just to make you feel better, I have tried, just because I'm a curious person, and whenever there's something, I always want to expand my knowledge base, and I always want to understand something. And if I'm not very good at something, I do want to get better. I don't need to be the best at everything. No, that's not true. I want to be the best at everything. But I did move on from you and tried to get lessons from other people, and they too said you probably should quit. I took it as if, instead of like there might be a commonality, maybe I shouldn't sing. I took it as if you were all wrong, but it is what it is.
It's not wrong, but sometimes we have to be willing to understand that maybe that's not our calling. Maybe that's not where we need to be.
Oh no, I'm terrible.
But there's something, maybe an instrument would be good for you. Maybe playing guitar, or maybe because you aren't willing to practice.
No, I'm willing to put in the time. We've talked about this. I'm terrible when it comes to music.
You are, and it always makes me wonder why. Why are you so terrible? I mean, you admit that you're terrible. You're convinced that you're terrible, and I wonder, is that part of it?
Oh,
do you believe so heavily that you can't be good at music, or that you're terrible at music, that you can sit there and stumble or not be able to identify or hear when I say, hey, do you hear the bass guitar in this? Do you hear the guitar or the drums on this track? And like, no, I really just can't hear any of it. I'm so terrible. It's like, how do you not hear the fucking drums? It's the drums.
Yeah.
They're very unique. I could understand maybe if you can't tell apart a trombone from a trumpet. Okay. They're similar. Should be identifiable, but the drums, like you can't hear the drum beat, the different like when you look back there, you got the cymbals, you've got the bass drum, you got the toms and the hi-hat. I mean, they all make a different sound, but when you put them all together, they make a beat. And that's where I don't know. I'm like, how do you not hear it?
Yeah, this is a good conversation, because I think hopefully there's people out there that are fucked up like I am. I don't
think that's true.
By myself.
I don't think that's true. Not what I meant, but yeah.
It's a lonely island.
It is,
and with no music.
Well, we said this earlier. I'm a literal person. I don't like assumptions. I want to understand things. And as you know this too. But I need to know the why and the how. I like the minutia, the details. And so when you're telling me about, for instance, when I asked what was the difference between rock and metal, and you're trying to explain about the instruments, and I'm trying to understand, well, why is that different? I don't understand why metal is different from rock. And then you tell me that, it's the instrumentation. They're not
I would have probably, I don't know.
Well, we talked about, what about rap?
Was your question.
The difference
you asked me the difference between pop and something else, or you asked me what is pop music,
right?
And if you were asking what the difference between rock and metal, I would start the explanation with, well, metal is rock. It is a form of rock and roll, but rock music is more of a larger term for a genre of just of styles, a mixture of styles.
So what is the difference with that style? That's what I want to know. Pop music, you've explained it before and it was successful. We're talking about, it's just poppy. And you explained it through the instruments. When rock is...
Yeah, I said pop music is a little bit catchy and a little bit loopy, and you have somebody singing a song that, just is popular, gains popular traction by either stimulating a popular interest or something. And whereas, when I'm listening to something, I don't want that. I don't enjoy that much of the pop. Right. I want something that's a little bit more heavier, maybe a little bit more edgy. And when I listen, I am listening to the guitar solos and or the guitar riffs and choruses. What are they doing? What's the bass guitar doing? Is the bass just following the guitar the whole time? Because that's boring. As a bass player myself, I want him to have his own groove that he's doing while the guitars do their thing. And I really enjoy the drums. I love listening to good drums, which is can be kind of hard to find because it's too easy, again, for the bass and the drums to just hit a simple rhythm that just kind of goes. And I feel like that's probably a pretty common thing in pop music, is it just kind of
goes. That's the explanation that you used before, where you were saying, you're not going to hear the drums, and you're not going to hear somebody riff on the guitar during a pop song. You're going to hear the focus is mostly on...
I think you can, though.
Yeah.
I think you can. I think there's it's like everything in this world there's gray area, right? And you have a category, you have all these categories, and then you have subcategories that are going down, and eventually they meet and they merge.
And that's my question, is because, you hear people, oh, it's too poppy. I'm like, well, what makes it poppy? I don't understand that. And the thing that
you're getting caught up in the minutia.
I'm getting caught up in the detail.
That's when it's like start pulling your hair out, because it's
right. I can't explain this to you.
Right. Well,
I'll never be able to explain it to you.
I can't tell you. Like I just don't know the difference.
Well,
so
that
you
was
guys
the frustration.
And people act like they know the difference.
But that was the frustration trying to teach you, is you want to know, well, why can't I do this? Well, there's 100 different reasons why you can't do it. I could start telling you, but you're just going to now go down this other rabbit hole. Sometimes you just have to shut up and do it. Oh, right?
But I couldn't.
You just have to.
I couldn't. Because when you say, why can't you hear the drums? I'm not listening to the song to listen to the drums. I prefer to listen to the lyrics. I like the meaning of the song.
So at that point, that's you listen to the lyrics. Voice. That's fine. But if we're saying, okay, well, let's stop listening to the lyrics
and break it down
and listen to the drums.
Yeah.
Let your ear and mind pick out that instrument that we're talking about or trying to hear.
And that's probably where it is. I don't spend enough time doing it. Like yesterday, just as a point of reference, I was telling my kids, let's listen to some history. Tupac Shakur. Put on some Tupac, right? And you're listening to the lyrics and the words, and damn it, that motherfucker was a poet. And that touches me. Like, I relate to it. It touches me how he spoke about his mother through music. I'm not paying attention to the other portion of the song.
And see, I'm totally different with that. I could not recite a lyric correctly to any song, except maybe Gangsta's Paradise. Because I learned that in like 8th grade and it's stuck in my mind. But the lyrics just don't get me. I'm more of the rhythm and the feel and the groove, and I want to move to it. There's different things. I pick up different styles of the music. Well, and maybe that's where some of the difference is you want to hear the story. You want to hear why the song is being written. And to me, it's more the feel and the groove, which I think tells a story too. I think it can. It's all kind of part of the collective story.
I think you two just made a breakthrough in my psyche.
Yeah.
Just a different way of like looking at the song or music and paying attention. So, yeah, I mean, and from your standpoint, I can't tell if they're picking or slapping or strumming or whatever the fuck they're doing. But I can tell you that I enjoy it. Like when I told you, hey man, like let's listen to this song by Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler did on one of his stand-ups that that he dedicated to Chris Farley. That was fucking awesome. And you were like, yeah, it's not a bad, like, yeah, you did pretty good. It's pretty basic. And I was like, well, sure, it's basic. But I thought it was fucking.
Yeah, you said it was awesome, but did you mean awesome. I think what you said was, man, he's so good.
Yeah, I thought he was great.
And I said, yeah, it's a good song. It's good material. It's obviously touching and to his friend, but as far as the musical talent goes, it's pretty basic. Like, he's not doing anything greatly technical or out crazy. He's just strumming and singing.
And then what did you do?
That's the
creative.
Point. Yeah, sometimes that's the point, right? And that's where you have these different feels and different grooves, like an acoustic version of a song or an electric version of a song. They have different feelings, and it's all personal.
I thought Sandler did a great job. I'm like, man, why isn't he doing more music? Because I do appreciate his music. I'm like, man, I know.
It's like Weird Al, right?
Yeah.
It's like Weird Al.
But Sandler has meaning with some of these things. And that's probably the difference. You're talking about, I'm like, man, he did a fucking great job. Because after we talked about it, you played a video of a guy strumming on the street, playing the guitar. And you're like, that guy that was incredible.
That was a bass guitar.
That was a bass guitar. You were like, that was a great job that he did. I'm like, yeah. It was all right. But I think go back what we're talking about though. I am probably taking more value in Adam's meaning and Adam's approach, that it's about his friend that he's dedicated to. And I'm probably listening to those lyrics and thinking to myself, damn, that's fucking awesome. As opposed to his, musical skills on the guitar. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to play and sing is kind of hard. And to create or to write it is adds to the trifold of making a song or singing a song. And he wrote it, he created it, so he's using his own brain and creativity to then put it into an audible thing or something enjoyable like a song. So he had to create the lyrics, sing the song while playing the guitar, which he wrote the guitar part too. And it didn't. And like I said, it wasn't a difficult thing to play or to do, but he put it all together in a way that was listenable and enjoyable and meant something to you and others.
Yeah, I love his songs. The one from Blended. I love the.
Who's this? Who's the
Adam Sandler?
Adam Sandler. Which he's got an album or multiple albums, but he's got multiple songs on.
Love his Hanukkah song, 8 Crazy Nights.
Well, some of it's just the creativity of it, right? And it could have very minimal musical value, but just the creativity. I think this is to your point, Joe, that it's the creativity side of it from start. Like he made this from the very beginning, and he created this all the way across, and now it's a really cool thing to listen to, and people can get different value from it.
I have all his songs on my podcast. I mean, on my podcast, on my iPhone, so I listen to it. The song from Grown Ups. He wrote a song and he dedicated to his father, and it was, I'm sure that most people like a song to his father. They probably don't even realize it. It was an awesome song that he wrote about his dad and growing up with his dad and how much his dad means to him. And I think that's where that's probably why I can't hear the drums.
You're listening to something else.
Yeah, I'm listening to something
which
else.
Which is okay. That's fine.
The question is that the black, the gray, or the white?
I
don't want to be in the white.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I think you have to be kind of all the time, right? You're kind of going in between things, and you're developing your own style. As you age and grow and mature, and hopefully mature.
Jeez.
In your case, not so much.
I don't know, man. I feel like we're still kids.
But we're talking. We're talking. Yeah, I do. But we're talking about music. But all of this stuff applies to sports. It applies to work. It applies to everything that you do. It takes time. It takes energy. It takes effort. And you weren't willing to do that musically.
No, I motherfucker, I practiced. I did. It's hard for my brain. If I don't know the why or the how, it's hard for me to wrap around it. And when I don't know that, that's where, and you've experienced this too, at different parts in our relationship. If I don't know the why and the how, I don't understand it. And if I don't understand it, I can't get past that part.
Yeah, you put your wall blockers go up.
My brain
can't get around. It's like just forget about the why or how and just let it be.
Yeah,
but I can't.
Do you do that with tennis? Do you break down your tennis swing? Do you sit there? Are you the one? And this is okay. I'm all for this. Like you videotape your tennis swing and make sure that the angles are right. Are you that analytical with tennis?
I've never done it like that. I don't know if I'm that analytical.
Why do you expect it from music then? It's a natural thing. Your tennis swing is a natural thing.
I think I apply it to things that I don't know or haven't experienced, and in order to learn it, in order to learn it, I need to break it down because otherwise it's hard for me. I did this in PT school, and I can't tell you how many times I got in trouble in PT school for doing this. Asking the why, asking the how. I mean, they were ready to kick me out because, I probably told that story.
I can totally see that. I could totally understand that.
They would ask a question. I would answer the question. They would say, and they'd answer the question. And then I'd have classmates that are like, isn't that exactly what you said? I'm like, yeah, but in a more detailed manner. And the professors used to say to me, you're focused on the dinghy. Focus on the boat. I'm like, the big picture. I'm like, I see the fucking big picture. But I want to know why the dinghy is sinking behind the boat. I just need to know that for my own education or growth, I guess you could say.
Or because you have to be challenging.
Maybe that's another. Maybe that's another thing. You're over there shaking your head. You're like, I'm fucking done. God bless you for sticking in this long, man.
You could say it's for educational purposes, but sometimes it's just you being a jerk.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think of myself being challenging all the time. And I tell you, another reason why I hate assumptions is that have been in positions where I'm talking to a physician and I'll use medical jargon, and because at that point it's easier just to communicate, right? And that physician will think that you're challenging them or that you are a challenging person. And at that point you're like, well, should I not assume? Should I assume that you're layman's and make you feel like I'm almost talking down to you? I mean, I don't understand where the medium is. And I think part of that's like reading your audience and knowing who you're speaking to. But even still, like, you find that with people, and you don't mean to be challenging. That's not the intention.
No,
but it comes off that way.
Yeah, it comes off that way.
It does.
It sounds, yeah.
So with my maturation, what I've learned lately, now that I'm getting closer to the 40s, is I let people just come to me.
Closer to the 40s.
I'm right around the corner.
You're like right on that crap.
I'm right around the corner. But no, I let people come to me, and I do more of like a question. I'll just more or less ask a question, or I'll put out options. It doesn't, and like you said, it doesn't have to be one or the other. And and if I tell somebody like options, it's not like you have to do it this way or that way. It's easy. I find that it's easier to digest and let that person make up their own mind.
Well, they're making their own mind up.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you're learning how to deal with people, and you're 40. Good job.
Ryan. I will give you an example though of asking people questions like, "Hey, what would you do in this scenario? What would you do in this scenario?" So I'm asking multiple people, and then one person gets mad at me because I asked them, and they're like, "Why don't you just do what I told you to do?" And so it's very difficult to appease everybody. But again, I think that goes back to reading your audience and doing.
Well, you say one person. I've seen multiple people. I've seen you ask for opinions from multiple people.
Well, that's what I meant. Asking from a group of people.
But I don't know it's necessarily like that you don't take the advice or the opinion and run with it or turn around and use that, but just even at the conversation itself. Mm-hmm. I've seen you talk with somebody, ask for their input, and then you almost start to refute their input, like right to their face. And they're like, what are you doing? Why are you turning it almost into like a soft argument about what they thought? And you're like rejecting their input, like, but this, but that, but, and then it turns them off. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Multiple people. And it's like, well, that's Ray. And then I gotta, then I've got, then I'm left with, that's friend. Yeah. She's a friend. Okay. You work together? Yep. Why? And like you said, how?
Why? But you know what happens? It's not, I don't do that with the intent to argue with that person. It's kind of like, when you ask somebody, how do I swing a racket? And they say, do it this way. And then you say, well, if I do it that way, wouldn't I also hit it into the net? When they say go low to high, do the C. So drop your racket face down and go from low to high so you get some topspin. If you don't know what topspin is and you don't know that technique, and you've tried that before, you might say to them and say, but wouldn't I hit that into the net? How can I do that and not hit the net? And then that person gets upset and says, just go low to high. And you're like, wait a second, that doesn't help.
Yeah, but you understand that, right? You're asking this person their opinion, and then you're refuting their opinion. And
they should be able to explain you go low to high because you're going to go low, catch the ball, and come high to lift that ball up while
getting spin. Yeah,
that's if you're hitting it. If you're hitting the ball, depending on your grip, and that's if you're hitting that ball with topspin. But if you're hitting a flat ball, if you're hitting it flat, you're not necessarily going to hit it over. Or if you hit it with backspin, you might be able to get some lift.
But you're not talking about a backspin or a flat. Like if your racket head is angled down and you're hitting from low to high, you're putting the topspin on it, and you are going to lift and put it up and over with the topspin. If you're trying to talk about hit a flat shot, that's kind of a different shot, that they're either explaining wrong
Okay, so here's a better example. I ran track, and a question that my coaches would often give me, because I was fast enough to do the middle distance, the 800 and the 400, and I always wanted to like be faster in that last 150 meters. And a question I would say is, how do I get faster? And my coach would say, you got to have a stronger kick. Okay, now that's layman's terms. That's coming from a coach who's coaching, one of their runners, not just somebody off the street. Okay, got to have a stronger kick. Okay, what does that mean? They don't tell me what that meant. They told me that for like 2 to 3 years. You got to have a stronger kick. Kick stronger at the last 100 meters. Okay, so what do you mean, kick my leg back? Whatever. So then you do it. And then as I learned biomechanics, I learned, no. Get off your heel. Get not on your toes. Don't run on your toes because you can hurt yourself that way. Get on the ball of your foot. Don't just plantar flex the foot. Spring off the foot. So you see, that's the minutia. And as a kid, I'm like, what does that mean? So I have no idea what the coach was talking about.
You're talking about high school age or?
Yeah, it was high school.
Okay.
And I'm just saying that, like, at that time, I have somebody giving me some information.
Yeah.
So if I'm talking to somebody now, and I said, how can I get faster? And they said to me, well, lean into it and use your kick at the last 100 meters. Then I could say to them, what do you mean by a kick? Now, at that point, if they're not willing or if they don't even understand how to break that down, that might come off as challenging. If they say run your toes, and then I said, well, if I run on my toes, wouldn't that eventually like hurt my toes? Would it be better to to use the ball of my foot? Now you can see why they would say that is challenging, and that you're refuting them.
Yes,
but you're not necessarily
question their every step, and
but you're not
like they should be able to. Okay, can you tell me what kick means? What do you mean by more kick? Okay, then they say this and that, and then you say, okay, but this, and they say, okay, well, not just that, but then add another little tweak to it and add the spring each step. And at that point, when they get to the final thing, when they've told you everything that they know, and you still say, yeah, but.
Well, I think that's where the annoying part comes in, right? Is I don't have an answer for you, and you're still asking questions,
right?
And it's comes down to being able to admit that, or having the ability to go, I don't know.
That's right.
And that's I've learned that through my teaching with students is I expect them to have a base of knowledge. This is my expectation. If they don't have that base of knowledge, I'm like, what do you mean you don't know that?
Right.
What do you mean you don't know what an embouchure is or what dynamics or what all these different things that I know? Now it's my job to teach you this. And rather than getting frustrated and getting upset with you, and this is kind of some of our arguments have come to blows because I haven't understood this. Some students just need to have that description. They need to know more about it.
Right.
And so a lot of it is failure as an educator. And we have to realize, and we are all educators. You as a parent are educating.
Well, even as a physical therapist, we talk about this all the time. We're very quick when we're failing. I did this not too long ago with a patient. We're very quick that when a patient's not doing well or they're starting to plateau or even digress, we're very quick to say that patient's crazy or there's something wrong with that patient.
They're not doing what we told them.
They're not doing. Yeah. Not that it's us, but it's them, right? And in that case, I had to step aside and say, what is this person telling me that I am missing? They're telling me all this other stuff, and I'm thinking it's them and not me. And I go, oh, they're telling me what's going on. So I'll try this way, even though it's unconventional, it's out of the box. You don't see it with most patients. And most patients would get just as frustrated. I mean, most PTs would get just as frustrated with this patient. I go outside of that box, start treating that patient because that's what they're telling me. And all of a sudden they start to succeed and they're feeling better. And I say to myself, that was not them. But how many people do that? We do it all the time. We're saying that's a challenging patient.
Yeah.
That's the patient's fault. No, it was my fault for not understanding what that patient was going through and what that patient was trying to tell me. And that patient was trying to give me or trying to get detail from me that I was not able to give. And it goes back to what you said. When I'm talking to somebody like that, and they're not willing to say, I don't know how to explain it to you in a way that you understand it, or I don't know what you're asking, or I don't know. I just don't know. Then now at that point, I'm even more skeptical, and I'm less likely to look for their opinion. And I'm more frustrated because they didn't take the time to understand what I'm missing from them.
Do you feel there's times that you know the answer, but you can't put it into words at that time?
When I'm talking to a person about explaining them,
like
or
something
when
that
I'm asking
you know,
a question?
something that you know deeply about, physical therapy,
Okay.
or diet or whatever, something you know a lot about, but this person just doesn't understand it the way you're putting it. That's not a failure on you. That just means you haven't thought of a way to connect that.
It's a
with
miscommunication,
this person.
right?
Right. No,
Right.
Or just the inability to kind of make that connection right now. Maybe you need to go home and think about it from their perspective for 15 minutes and try and put yourself in their shoes. What have they been experiencing all this time, and how can I relate it?
To go back to what he had said, though, that he's witnessed with other people, it's, I have an idea. Or, in our job, there's a lot of theoretical concepts. There's a lot of stuff that you and I do that nobody else does in the clinic, or probably elsewhere. We're combating a condition like somebody with stenosis, structural lumbar stenosis. How many people are told to stretch? They're told to stretch all the time. And then you say, all right, does that work? Yeah, it works for a little bit. Well, you got to do it every day for the rest of your life for the next 50 years. And you say, really? That's the answer? Well, that's the best answer we got at this point in time. So you and I have gone outside of the box and say, well, what causes sarcomere-genesis? And this is just for the purpose, how do we increase mobility so they're less likely to suffer from stenosis? So we do things that are radically different, and we try to explain those things. Now, I have an idea. I understand the concept. I ask a fellow clinician their perspective, okay? Because I'm trying to understand the topic a little bit better. And when they tell me their perspective, a lot of times it's just basic knowledge. And then if I ask a question on top of that to follow with that, it's not because I'm trying to challenge them. It's not because I'm trying to be difficult. It's for me to better understand their perspective. And a lot of times, those individuals that get upset like that, they don't understand that perspective themselves. They don't. How many of the clinicians don't even understand that stretching doesn't actually cause sarcomere-genesis? It does two things that the literature have shown to be true. It increases range of motion, not because it increases the tissue, the length of the tissue, but because it desensitizes the person to pain, so they're able to stretch further. Okay? That's it, but it's not permanent. That problem comes back after a couple of hours or a few hours or the next day. The other thing that it does is it helps calm down inflammation. That's it. So if you're asking a muscle or a ligament or a tendon or a capsule to physically alter, to anatomically adapt from 5 centimeters to 10 centimeters, stretching will not do that. Now, how many of our fellow clinicians know that, or are even willing to admit that, or to take it a step further, are willing to go the extra mile and look it up to see whether or not the research has actually shown that to be the case, or that it doesn't do that? They don't. So when I ask that question on top of that question, a lot of times they don't know. And at that point, they're getting defensive from my perspective.
But isn't stretching a part of the solution? It may not be the silver bullet, but isn't it part of the solution? Can't it help? I mean, it's probably a combination of strength training and isolating muscles. And I don't even know what it is you're mentioning, but isn't it kind of an all-encompassing thing? You've got to have the cardio. You've got to get up and move.
Do you?
I mean, shouldn't you? Doesn't it seem like that makes sense?
But that's the problem, Todd, is that we don't exactly know. But we try to play it out as if we do know that. Do you understand that?
You know that it doesn't hurt, though, right?
Well, no, it can in some cases.
If you're doing high impact
No,
stuff,
it can in some situations. And especially when you're dealing with somebody with chronic pain.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing you want to do is bullshit them. People want to be transparent. The problem is we don't know. And instead of admitting that we don't know.
But there is you got to know something,
you
right?
Did say, you told that we know, you said we know it does two things.
Right.
One of them was reduce inflammation.
But how many clinicians know it does those two things as opposed to elongate the tissue? They're taught that it elongates the tissue and increases their range of motion and therefore will allow them to be more flexible. How many of the clinicians know that that's not necessarily true and know that what it does is it desensitizes you for a short period of time by inhibiting the mechanoreceptors of that joint and tissue, and which is temporary, and resolves or helps calm down inflammation? How many of them know that versus no, that's if you want to create more range of motion, you got to stretch.
I don't know how many of them know or would. I think that a number of them do know. They are aware of that. There's, I'm sure, a number that also don't or are either misinformed or not up to date or followed it. But I still think that even the ones that know, even myself included, will say, okay, I still, this patient's in pain, they're immobile, they can hardly move right now. We're going to start off with just a little bit of stretching to get a temporary relief, to get a temporary increase in range of motion so that they can then turn around and move and do something else that is going to have a more long-term effect on them. Because if they can't move to do anything, or can't move to do something that is going to stimulate the sarcomatogenesis, then they're not going to be able to do what ultimately is going to help them in a longer term. So I think a lot of therapists do still utilize stretching, static stretching, in it for pain relief and to increase mobility in a time span that they could then hopefully combine it with something else that is going to stimulate muscle growth and true muscle lengthening.
And so the stretching creating more mobility, we don't even know if that's necessarily the case. There's some research, very good research, that are being done right now in this very topic that's investigating. And what they find, if you want to increase mobility and desensitize the person and all that, and you're looking for the best bang for your buck, especially in our setting where we only get so much time with the patient, it's really just movement. Movement will actually cause more tissue elongation, sarcomatogenesis, calming down inflammation, allowing for that mobility to occur.
This is this is out of my realm. I don't know much about this, but I know exactly what you're talking about, because in music, there are a lot of teachers that don't know why it's important to play scales. They can't tell you why you should play scales, but they know that scales are important. And they know that if you do this, this will make you better. It could be any number of reasons. Either you're playing the instrument more, or the instrument's on your face, or whatever, or the technique in music is comprised of scales and blah, 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 all this stuff. But they know that scales are important. They know that this area is important, and that's why they encourage you to practice it. So you can't expect them to be able to justify all the time necessarily, right. But knowing that this is important is part of the growth. And sometimes just getting the horn on your face, sometimes just stretching, getting the body moving, but again, is a start to what our eventual goal is.
Perhaps, but is it necessary? This is a very good question that we have to ask, and we have to criticize and critically appraise.
Yeah, but until you have the answer, that doesn't mean you stop trying.
No, but it means you can move on. And that's what I'm saying. So like I ask that question and I ask another question because I'm looking for perspective. And I'll ask multiple people that question because I'm looking for variances in that perspective. And a lot of times it's just the same old perspective. And it's perspective not from them. It's perspective of what they learned in school.
Because it's the way they were taught, right? It's just what they learned, yeah.
Yeah, it just is. Now I got a question. What's a scale?
I was sitting here smiling. You probably saw me smiling. I was going to stop you and say, now, do you think Ray knows what a scale is?
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
That's a scale?
That's a scale is a series of notes comprised in an order. So there's different types of scales depending on which note you start. You can really dig into the minutia of a scale. You have
so there's multiple scales, but
major scales, minor scales, depending on where you start on the keyboard.
But that makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't you want to educate the client on learning scales and playing the different scales? Because what does that do? If anything, it's going to at least increase their range, perhaps, or their understanding of
There's
the
a
range.
lot of
and their
reasons. I
range.
mean, it depends. It's like fundamentals.
Right.
It's like you can't run before you walk kind of thing. And
Right.
and sometimes the stretching, that's what I'm equating this to, is I can't walk yet, but maybe just bending over and touching my toes a little bit
But that
can
might
get me moving to where I can
But
eventually get
that's
there.
where the false equivalency may lie, is that you have to stretch before you can go.
Well, no,
We now know that babies don't have to crawl or creep before walking, but that was the case for decades, where the child has to do this first and then it has to do this first. They have to do it in sequence in order to be a successful
Yeah.
adult.
yeah.
Not true. But when people first came out and said, "Do they have to do that?" All of a sudden, they're the challenging ones. They're the ones being difficult. Why? Because they're not pandering to that dogma that you're taught that it has to be this way. So, if stretching is a very useful tool, I'm not saying it's not. But what I'm saying is, it's not for the reasons in which we're telling people, or that we may ourselves understand.
Well, I think that's an issue with the profession. Then.
That's right.
And having that ability to, I don't really know why we're doing this, but this is our end goal, and this can be a start. And having the ability to say that and say, we have a goal in mind. We're going to try a lot of different ways to get to that goal. Stretching can be a part of it, and then list and tell. And I think that's the transparency, right?
Yeah.
Having transparency and being able to say, I don't know what's going to work for you yet. We're all individuals. We're all different. We all learn differently. And maybe I can walk before I crawl. Maybe I can.
But this goes back to that perfect segue where we can go into diet. You understand a little bit about nutrition.
Yeah.
You've gone through it in yourself in your lifetime. But how many people are told time and time and time again that you have to have a high carbohydrate diet? You need a plant strong diet.
I'm going to stop you real quick because I need to step out. This coffee is running through. Do whatever you want while I'm gone, but
right.
I will be right back.
We're going to probably talk. I'm going to talk a lot of shit about you now that I know how you feel. All right. No, so like you're told time and time. Well, I want to save that for when he comes back. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But let's go back to where you are in one of your many hats. How is the business going? Your endeavor. I know you look at the big picture. You're looking to acquire this business that you are managing at this point. How's that going? How are you doing with that?
It's tough right now. It's hard to. I mean, in the current climate. It's been really tough. We've had a good year. We're doing okay, but it's tough, and it's hard to think about buying something, in this climate. But it's good. Everything is great. I mean, we're working twice as hard for half the business, which is what we need to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be there to support. We do a lot of stuff with schools, and we need to be there to support them and help give them tools that they need to be successful and to keep these students playing in band and orchestra. There's a lot of students that have left it because during the pandemic, it's hard to play music when you can't be together. It's a lot of individual practice. It's like hitting the tennis ball against the wall, and you're just sitting there and you get sick of doing that. At some point, you need that interaction with others. And so it's been tough.
I love your perspective. This is something that is very important. From clinician's perspective, it's patient first. And from what I'm noticing from you, it's student first, which is so refreshing to see that, especially from another profession. But as far as like you're concerned, I know you have wanted to acquire this business for quite some time.
Yeah.
Is it still worth it to you? Because you do a lot of other things just to basically keep up with the Joneses as it is now. Are you still looking to acquire the business?
It absolutely is. Yeah.
That's your end game, right? That's a dream. That's
not the end game. That's just kind of the next step, right?
Well, you've had this dream since. I mean, you had this dream in college, man. I think even at the end of high school, you had this dream.
To own the store, sure. But the goal is to encourage and support music education, because I think I've really had a great experience, and it's been a really positive influence in my life. And I think it can be for a lot of students. I think it can be for a lot of people. It comes back to we're all different. We're all different. We have different interests. We have different experiences. And I think music particularly has benefited me. And I think it can a lot of people. So that's what I'm fighting for for that. And I think the store is just a step along the way that we can get to that goal.
Yeah, you made me think about that step, because there was a time I was a theater person. I wanted to do acting. I was interested in directing. I wrote, which I still need to finish my writings. I still have those ideas, those wacky, crazy ideas. But do you remember when we were kids and I would say to you, man, let's own a theater.
Yeah.
You do the music, I'll do the plays, and we can have an art gallery. And I don't even know if you know this part, but I used to dream about this. I still kind of do sometimes. I wanted to have, this is going to be interesting for you. I wanted to have an art gallery where you could educate people from all different sects of art, sculpting, painting, drawing, sketching, just everything, acting, whatnot, music. Have a theater and run the theater. And I wanted Todd to be a part of that so bad. And I even tried to pull Grant into it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he would do.
Grant's on drums.
Right. He's like a gorilla on the drums. It's just boom, boom, boom. He'll play for bananas.
Yeah.
But I was at that point, I was listen, man, we'll raise money. We'll take a portion of that money. And kind of similar to the podcast, I wanted to use that money to support the homeless and have no chance. Do you remember this?
I remember this. Yeah.
A no chance homeless hotel, where it's a giant hotel where you bring in the homeless. They have a place to stay. They have to cook for themselves, feed for themselves. You provide them with resources the best you can, but they're all taking care of each other, and they have their own room. They get some clothing. They have a certain period of time. I think at the time I was thinking 3 to 6 months. Mm-hmm. Of maybe even up to a year to live in this facility and to help them with resume development, acquiring skills for a job, going on job interviews, acquiring a job, and mm-hmm. then they could stay, a couple more months to acquire some money, help them get an apartment, a place to live. So now they're on their feet and they have a few bucks in their pocket, and then for whatever reason, if they lost sight because of drug addiction or something happened to them, they became homeless again, they could come back. And the theater and the art gallery and the lessons and the music was going to support that. That was a dream of mine as a kid. And you just made me think about that. And I was like, man, we're way old, Now it's not even ever happened.
Reality at some point comes into play. But the dream is still there. And I mean, I think the idea of that may change a little bit.
I mean, I'm an idealistic person as well as a literal person, but that was something that I really wanted to say, listen, no matter your struggles, if you are homeless and you want to get out of that situation, stay in this hotel for free, but we'll give you the resources, but you're going to have to cook for your fellow homeless. You're going to have to help, do some seamstress work as a community. Get into a position where you can get out.
That is a good idea, and that is a big part of getting yourself back on your feet. Is once you've got your feet on the ground, start helping other people from the same situation to get themselves back on their feet. And the more you help the others, the more you grow yourself and do better and better and better.
Yeah,
everyone needs help, right? We all need help, and
some more than others. Huh?
Even the president of the United States, everyone needs help, and you get help along the way. And I think that was one of the things as we were growing up and such good friends is we knew that we had help.
Yeah.
We knew there was somebody there to help us. And I think that's what your goal was to help and realize that these homeless folks, they need help. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but that doesn't mean you stop trying to help and you stop trying to make things better.
That's the democratic socialist in me, I guess. The idealistic perspective, because I think people.
I think that's socially. I think that's like the nice thing is to put yourself in their perspective.
Right.
And if I was in that, however we got there, however this person ended up where they're at, sometimes you need.
Let's not judge them. Let's give them.
You need a little help, and sometimes you need to make it happen for yourself too by putting in the hard work and doing those things. But that outstretched hand saying, "Hey, somebody's here to help. I'm here to help you."
Yeah, we're all on the same damn team. We're all Americans, man. Like Joe Rogan says, he's like, where the team is as good as their weakest link, or they're losers. Let's make the losers winners. Yeah. We're doing it for each other, and it just makes us all better.
Right.
Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole. I can go down that all day. But anyway, let's go back to the idea of nutrition, and we're talking about being challenging and difficult and refuting things. But how long? And even to this day, I went through, getting, my master's in nutrition and becoming a registered dietitian, all the literature, plant strong, you need to have a carbohydrate-based diet. 70, 80% of your calories need to come from carbohydrates, low fat, low sodium. So you're talking 10, 15% of your calories from fat, right? We see people doing that. It's not working. It may work for some people. And this is where I think nutrigenomics will eventually take the lead, but we don't have equipment that's sensitive enough for that yet. But it's not working, and so from that perspective, you've been down that road where you tried plant strong, everything other than just veganism and vegetarianism, and then this is the question. This is my point. Eventually, you just say some of the literature from my perspective as an RD. And you ask the question, is it really beneficial? And then when you talk to those individuals and they say, yeah, and then you ask another question and they have a hard time answering that question. You ask another question. That's when their dogma comes into play, because now you're challenging their dogma or their perspective and they can't answer the question. And instead of saying, I don't know, or let's find out, it's, no, it has to be this way. Now you're labeled as a difficult, challenging person. And you've gone through a different perspective in nutrition. Would you mind talking about what took you there and how you went there and all that?
It's probably about 10 years ago. I started having back trouble and excruciating pain in my lower back. And I knew why. I was obese. I was huge. I was inactive. I wasn't moving. I would get off of work. I'd go eat a piece of a whole pizza and sit in a chair and watch TV, go to bed and do it all over again. I knew why it was that way. I was just making excuses as to, not yet. I'm not going to change yet.
Yeah, I think that was like the heaviest we've ever seen.
And it was a picture that I saw from a friend's bachelor party, and we were at a football game, and there was a picture of 5 of us, and I took up like half the freaking picture, and it was one of those moments where I said, enough. I've got to do something. I don't know what the answer is, but I know what I'm doing isn't working. And so I tried paleo at this time. Paleo was really getting popular.
This is to remind our audience. At this time, I am getting my master's in nutrition.
Yeah.
And instead of turning to me and asking me any questions, which would have been the worst choice, by the way, because at that point, I'm looking at what they're teaching me. Plant strong, high carbohydrate based diet. They're not talking about the homogeneous effects of our monocrops. They're not talking about lectins. They're not talking about phytochemicals or glycophosphates. They're not talking about any of that. Just saying, get on a low fat, low protein, high carbohydrate based diet. And so instead of reaching out to me, you went out onto your own and looked into paleo. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, part of it was just common sense to me. I'm eating this manufactured food that I don't know what's in it. I don't know where it's coming from. I had never read a label in my life. And I ended up reading, I had a friend that had done this and had seen some real success. And he said, hey, just read this book. Read this book. It starts with food. And it's really the basis of the paleo diet. I don't remember who wrote it, Dallas and Melissa Harward or something like that. And so I read it, and they were talking about me. It was me that they were talking about in this book. We've made excuses all this time, and we're suffering from inflammation. We're suffering from all this ailment, and it's what we eat. And whether you believe it to be paleo or whatever, it's what we eat. And that time, it made sense to me. Vegetables and protein and no carbohydrates and no processed foods. Read the labels. If it has sugar in it, avoid it. Don't eat it. And for me, it was that structure. More than the diet itself, more than the lifestyle itself, it was the fact that it forced me to meal plan. It forced me to think about what I was putting in my mouth. It forced me to read labels on the shelves and not just take somebody's word for it.
Yeah, you got really into it. You started
look
paying
at this
attention.
stuff, and that's what really kind of led me to it. And at that time, I was really motivated because I was in pain. I was having back trouble. I was on my way to immobility, and so I was pre-diabetic, and all of these things that were stacking up against me, and I had to make a change. I had to do something different.
And so what happened after you did it, when you were on it? I
lost 135 pounds in 9.5 months.
And you looked great, and you started exercising more too.
And that's where I think a lot of this stuff, and we were talking about stretching, is it's not just one thing.
Right.
It's not, this is the solution to your problem. It's not. The solution is all of these different things. It's exercise. It's what you eat. It's how much you eat. There's a lot of different variables.
Sleep, your
stress, there's all these variables that go into it. It's if you're looking for a one solution to fix all your problems, that's not the case. Whether it's in music, whether it's in diet, whether it's in sports, whether it's in anything, there's factors. There's a lot of different factors that go into what make us us.
And at that point, you were living the American dream. You had just graduated college. You had a full-time job. You had multiple jobs because you were doing multiple things at the time.
Yeah.
You would work all day. And when I say work all day, I mean he's working from like 8 a.m. until like 9 o'clock at night. So that's where you would go and say, hey, I'm just going to get something on the go. You're not cooking for yourself.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about what kind of drinks you're having. Are you having water? Are you having coffee? Or are you having soda and coffee?
Well, and at that time,
juice?
It was a social thing too. So I'm drinking a lot. I'm drinking a lot of alcohol.
Socially,
yeah.
Because you're stressed out. And then you weren't sleeping, right? You'd come home. You got to unwind from work a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So you stay up. You go to bed. You get only a few. You probably got more than 6 hours, but you probably didn't get 8 or 9
it was right around
hours.
6 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not getting 8 or 9, which we now know that if you're not sleeping, you're just going to gain more weight, and you're going to promote that inflammation in your body. All right. And you're eating foods and animals. You're not only eating pro-inflammatory foods, but you're also eating animals that are also undergoing the similar thing. We don't talk about how we treat our animals in factory farming, but those animals are going through a similar process where they have poor microbiome health, and they are going through an inflammatory cycle as well. And that's why when you compare the nutrients between a factory farm animal versus a regenerative farm animal or a wild animal, the nutrient density is so radically different.
Yeah, that's where kind of when I started hearing about the organic farming and the organic process.
Not just hearing, you were learning
about
educating yourself.
Yeah.
And you did great.
Yeah. Well, and then it just is. It's always a struggle, and it always takes effort. You never stop learning. You never stop growing, and so right now I'm kind of off the wagon, and I'm eating anything that I see, and it's stress eating.
And you're still in the rat race.
Yeah.
But let's take a step back. Like you and I, we didn't eat that much different when we were in high school and college.
Yeah.
What do you think the difference is? as far as and how you react to food versus my reaction to food. Because I think it's sensitivity. I think you're probably a little bit more sensitive to certain foods more so than I am. It's not that you can't eat them, but I think your body reacts to them a little differently.
I think it's a lot of things. It's not a one size fits all. The way I rely on food as an emotional support. And when I have a stressful day, I go home and I can eat a whole box of crackers or something.
Do you go through a pint of ice cream while you cry? You're like, I just
cry
want somebody to hold me.
Yeah, no, but it's a reliance and it's a habit.
Right.
And you're making these habits and
But I think too that there's different. This is the perspective of nutrigenomics or nutrition and genetics. There are commonalities between ethnicities. However, everybody requires a different stimulus nutritionally for their genetics. And we talked about this before. You can suppress genetics or you can amplify genetics. You can amplify your genetic expression positively or negatively, just based on what you do. And nutrition does that. Okay. So for you might be a little bit more sensitive to gluten or carbohydrate than I am. That's why most of the world is lactose intolerant. But if you're of Irish descent, 90% of the Irish, or I think it might be a little bit higher, more than 90% of the Irish are lactose tolerant. And that just tells you that there's differences there. So I think that's one of the differences between you and I as well.
Right, but genetics, part of my thought here is that genetics can also be affected by what you eat. And
that's what I mean.
Yeah, you go to these different areas of the world and their diet is different. There's a reason why you go to Southeast Asia and the lifespan is much longer, the suffrage from cancer and all of these things, there's different, or in the Greek Isles or whatever, and their diet is olive oil. You have these different diets.
But you look at the Netherlands and they're bigger and they're stronger and they're tall and they live just as long. So you're right though. We're talking about if you are of South Asian descent, you're probably going to be better off on a plant-strong diet. But if you're of Northeastern, Northwestern European descent, you're probably not going to do too well on a vegetarian diet or a vegan diet. You probably need a little bit more protein. We talked about it at work today, or this week. There's staples. You know what a staple is in your diet?
Yeah.
Yeah. A staple is a common food that most cultures share from culture to culture.
Yeah.
One of the most common staples in the diet is fish. But how many people frequently eat fish? And how many people are void or deficient in omega-3s and omega-6s and omega-9s? Okay, how many people are deficient in vitamin A, We did a podcast on vitamin A. If you notice, the deficiencies from vitamin A were far more consequential and there were more deficiency-related issues than toxicity issues. And again, vitamin A the best sources comes from animal products. Now for you, that's probably more appropriate. But if you were, from Japan, you probably would be better off on a different type of diet.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I mean, is some of that evolution? Is that an evolutionary thing? Do you think that people in Sweden have evolved more or less than somebody in Southeast Asia?
I think there is. I think we're starting to understand more and more about genetics and how genetics affects you. I mean, they're going to the part genetics is so impactful, and it's not just genetics. It is environment as well. But genetics is so impactful that they're even talking about how genetics manipulates one's thought free will. That's a different talk for another day. But there's people that are basically saying there is no such thing as free will. And if you look at your genetics, you'll understand why you make the decisions that you make. So do you really have free will? But that's as far as genetics is going everywhere.
Yeah.
It's really incredible to see our understanding of genetics. So yeah, I do. And I think now we also understand that, Homo sapiens, messed around and got a little crazy with Neanderthals. And if you have a higher percentage of Neanderthal DNA, you're going to be affected by COVID a little differently than you would from somebody who's purely Homo sapien. So I think there's differences there, and we have to respect those differences. And I think we need to learn to understand them. And then after that, we need to start to apply our nutrition a little differently. And right now, the American diet is a commercial homogenized, corporate controlled market.
Yeah.
You know, big differences. And you know, for you had. Do you want to speak to your lifestyle a little bit? It's kind of similar to Todd's. Todd.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Now, Todd, to go back here, Todd, you fell in love. You lost all that weight. You finally landed the chick. Probably, you know, she thought you were hot. She still does. And if you like it, you got to put a ring on it, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, fell in love, got back into the rat race, fell off the paleo wagon, and now, well, you're not as big as you were before.
No.
Which is great. But you know what you have to do.
The struggle is real, man. That's like right. Adulting is hard. Right?
And once you fall off that wagon, damn, that thing is fast. It's hard to get back on.
It's habits. It's all about habits, I'm finding.
But you can speak to that too, because we talk about that too with ice cream and shit like that.
Yeah. So over 2 years ago, actually well over 2 years ago, I would say.
Already?
It's probably been closer to like, if we want to go back to when it started. I think first when I had went to the doctor, I was having some pain, and it was like, man, so he's like, I don't know what it is. Let's do a CAT scan of your abdomen, or abdomen. And so we did, and he's like, well, don't know what you're having this pain for, but it looks like you've got a little scarring on your pancreas. I think you have chronic pancreatitis. So I was like, okay, what does that mean? And he said, well, you know, at the time I was drinking, and he wanted me to stop drinking. He said, you have to stop drinking. I mean, even a drop of alcohol can be toxic. I thought, okay. So I did at that time stop drinking. And I did ask this doctor, I remember saying, well, so what else should I do? And he just hammered that drinking thing into me, which was like, okay, that's great. But he didn't give me any dietary advice, anything like that. I looked into, okay, what should I expect with pancreatitis? And it was, possible pain, increased sugar, or the use of insulin, diabetes. That whole thing was kind of an issue. Well, year or 3 years down the road is okay. I did start drinking again, but I didn't change any diets at the time or any intakes there. And I was overweight at the time, about 195, 192, and eventually closer to 200. And finally the sugar caught up, and the doctor started saying, your sugar's a little high, your sugar's a little high. Got me into a specialist, and she says, okay, well, you're pre-diabetic. So that was a little bit of a warning and a wake-up call to start doing a little more diet and exercise. Now, coming into that visit with that doctor, I think I just stopped drinking again, and thought, okay, well, that's a big change. That was a big change for me. This time I kind of resounded to not actually just stop for a period of time, but to stop for good. And I had gone 3 months and saw the doctor again, and she said, okay, well, did you start diet and exercise? I said, yeah. She said, okay, well, your sugars are about the same. I think I want you to go on insulin. Okay. No, I don't accept that. I'm not going to do that. So I've been exercising twice a week or once a week, but I might have skipped last week. And the diet, I haven't had any alcohol, and I haven't had any Cokes or sodas, sugar drinks, because I felt like that was a big. No. I'm sorry. I forgot. No, I was drinking more sugar drinks because I didn't have the alcohol. So I thought it's not diet, root beer and Mountain Dew would be okay, and coffee with sugar, because coffee, sugar, cream is delicious. So I said, okay, that point, now I want to get serious about the sugar. Cut out the sugary drinks. That was I think a pretty big one. Cut out the sugar in the coffee. Just do coffee with a little bit of the flavored creamers, because they're 5 grams. Turns out that's the same as a packet of sugar, but I didn't need to put 4 packets or 4 tablespoons or whatever the thing is in there to make it worth it. and then started a diet and exercise. So I looked at and went to a diabetic diet counselor, and she's taught me how to read labels. She says, look at the total carbohydrates. You want your meals to be maybe 70 carbohydrates per meal. That's 15 per portion of food that you have. We talked about the protein portions, the vegetable portions, and then the actual starchy portions, and make those starchies minimal.
Did they talk about the frequency of nutrition too, of eating frequently throughout the day to control your blood sugar?
She probably did. I don't know if I still have the full, I say pamphlet, but it was more like a folder that folded out like 4 times.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that pamphlet.
And it did talk probably about the frequency and the blood sugar stabilization through the day. You don't want it going up and down and crashing and roller coaster riding. But for me, it was as simple as, okay, so look at the labels, see what the carbs are on there, make sure you're not eating all the processed carbohydrates or straight sugars or manipulated sugars, and keep it to a more whole food, lower carb diet. So I started doing that and increased the exercise frequency. That was more of a gradual process than the foods, because the foods, was not as gradual. Just dropped the alcohol, then dropped the the sodas, then dropped the desserts. So it was a little gradual, but by doing that, I just had to find substitutes at that point. Okay, so what was I going to do for a dessert? Like if I really wanted something sugary, what can I do now? I love peanut butter and I love honey, and those two things are. Honey's natural as it can get. Farmer's market honey, get some of that, and I can eat that on straight from the bottle, or with peanut butter.
Like a baby.
Yeah. So I've been using that at night after dinner, after a good healthy dinner, was a way to curb my desire for that sweet ice cream or whatever other desserts that I wanted to have. But and it was a few months later, probably. I must have gone back to the doctor in 3 months and was lighter, and she wasn't convinced yet. She's still saying, I think I still want you to take this medication. 6 months or whatever, the next time I'm like 20, 30 pounds lighter, and now my sugars had made a change. And that was around also the time after I started lifting weights as part of my workouts. Like I was doing the 2 or 3 days a week, but I wasn't like doing squats and deadlifts, like really working on my legs, my big muscles. And,
which is crazy because you're in the field.
Yeah.
And you know that, hey, 2 days a week is really not enough.
I was afforded the opportunity to get to the gym early in the morning before work too. That started, and it was almost a habit of necessity that I was there as early as I was. And then when that changed, I was able to, then it was on me. It was like, okay, I've started this habit. Now, am I going to keep it? And I don't know if it was, I had just done it long enough, or I had established the more than a 30, it was like a 6-month type. I was getting there and doing it. And then it was like, okay, well, it's in, I'm doing it. And I like working out and I like exercise. I like that when I was in school, high school, playing football, and I always had this desire to want more. I want to do more. I want to do harder. I want to look better. I want to be faster. When I get into something, like we talked about earlier, I want to be better, faster, and I want more. That's why I had to stop drinking the alcohol, because I wanted always more. I wanted to drink all of them or show you how fast I could drink them. And, So exercise hit me like that. Once I started doing it more and more, then it really took over into, I want to do this. I want to be doing this. It actually kind of took the place of tennis after a while. Now COVID also helped shut down some of the tennis leagues I was in, but now I'm getting back to playing a little bit. But anyhow, putting in that lower carb, I kept it at like 45 to 55 carbs per meal. Most of them was like cauliflower and whatever vegetable I was having there. Every now and then, sweet potatoes, squash. I love is great. Any of the squashes. I think I use them for the noodles. Zucchini, what is it? Spaghetti squash and zucchini noodles.
Use it for spaghetti.
That's great. Riced cauliflower. There's my rice.
Yeah.
because you need those. I needed those kind of things, like I said, to substitute for the stuff that I wasn't going to have, which was the spaghetti pasta and the rice fillers of the meals that we were putting our potential proteins and vegetables on, or just going with a huge roll of rice, because I love rice. Like I could eat that with soy sauce, butter, salt. Like that's enough. Just a big bowl of it, you know. But yeah, and it was 4 months in of the dieting and the exercise uptake that the pounds started to really fall off and the sugars leveled or stabilized. The mood at the same time was also significantly different. I took a spiritual approach to the mood as well, some of the mood and behavioral changes that I was trying to make. So, you know, it was, like you said earlier, it wasn't just one thing. It was this whole combination of things that I put together to make this change.
But you make one change and then you feel good.
Yeah.
And you make another change. And it's like it's like dominoes. And then vice versa. Once you relapse, it's like another domino.
They said something in the It Starts With Food book that really kind of resonated with me. It said, I've never felt guilty about not eating something.
Right.
And if I could pass on that piece of cake.
Now fuck that. I'm always guilty.
I know, right?
Like, no.
And so for me, it was creating this habit. I needed to create good habits. And if my habit was to come home and go for a walk, or go exercise, or go do something, I'm creating a good habit. And I do this in my music stuff too, as in my teaching and stuff. We need to develop good habits. If we're practicing the wrong habit over and over again and expecting a different result, it's insanity, right?
Yeah.
And so we need to develop these good habits, whether it be in exercise, whether it be in work or in practice or anything we do in life. The habit is important.
And it's not, it seems, when you're on the other side of the fence, it seems difficult, it seems hard. But once you start doing it, it's not that hard. It isn't. It kind of, like you said, it snowballs and you start to make other changes. And the great thing is you feel amazing. Yeah. You say to yourself, what have I been doing?
It's more pride.
Yeah.
I was proud of myself.
But you don't realize how bad you felt.
Right.
You know? Yeah. And then, but when you relapse, again, it's so subtle and it's so sneaky that even then you're like, I'm feeling like shit again. But you still don't realize how much you feel like shit. But anyway, to go back to you lost
40 pounds.
Shut up, Todd. To go back to you lost 40 pounds.
Dropped 40 pounds.
You look great. And now you're a hand model.
Yeah.
It's true. Show your beautiful digits to the
cartoon. To the cartoon.
Oh, yeah. Those are sexy.
That's incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the nice mitts, aren't they?
Yeah. So
he's like George Costanza. He has to wear oven mitts to work. You know? No manual therapy for you.
You can't do. Reminds me of that commercial on TV now. Your wayward pinky.
You have the upper hand.
No, he's got beautiful fingers. He doesn't nail bite at all. He massages all day long. It's soft as a pillow. I wouldn't know that.
I'm a little concerned about all the knowledge you have with his hands.
I don't really know. I'm just assuming. But nevertheless, I'm a little jealous because I can't model for shit.
Yeah.
So good for you.
That is all so grossly wrong. I bite my nails. My hands are dry as can be. I've got splits on almost every finger. 3 out of these 5.
I was noticing that this morning.
God damn it.
I was like, man, my hands.
God damn it, and fuck you. This is why people hate Tom Brady. A good-looking guy who plays football, worth millions of dollars, has children, married to a supermodel who's still sexy at her age, and she's his sugar mama. Give me a fucking break. I love you, Tom. I'm a big Buccaneer fan, so I want to keep you on the team. But this is exactly why people hate you, Joe. It's because you got beautiful hands and you don't do anything for them.
I don't think that many people hate me.
You're like the
damn.
I do. You're like the skinny girl who just shoves that cake in her face and can't gain weight. Yeah.
I don't think so.
You did have lovely locks too. You cut it off recently.
Yeah.
You know, gonna donate the braids, the locks to the kids. It's
Yeah, I
awfully sweet.
think I'm going to take them or give them to Wigs for Kids.
That's really
I
nice.
heard that's a good charity where they make the wigs and give them away.
But that hates me. That makes me hate you even more because you're benevolent with your hair and you have hair, and unlike me,
it's the have hair part.
Yeah, it's the have hair. I don't even have hair to give myself.
A hat at this,
right? Fuck you.
Thank you.
That was a hand modeling gesture, just so you know. It's a skill you have to have. That middle finger is grotesque.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, I think those are great stories. So I guess I probably should tell you my story. You know it a little bit, but I really haven't talked about it too much. I went through the education. I got the minutia. I studied hard, like a fucking fiend. And most of the time when we grew up as kids, I was skinny as shit. And kids made a big deal. They pick on you a little bit, and you just get tired of being skinny. And so I purposely gained weight because I want. Remember,
the joke was I got 50 pounds to gain before I start cutting up.
That's right. That's 50 pounds. You don't know shit about vitamin B6. I got 50 pounds to gain before I cut up. And that was the idea at the time. Is that I exercised like a maniac. I was a track and I was in cross country. And I was just tired of being skinny and small. Kids, they fuck with you when you're small. And I'm like that chihuahua. I had to bark. Whereas Grant, it's a fucking big guy, and this is a funny story. We're in high school, senior year. Grant's a junior. He's big. He's just big. Okay. He looks like a bigger version of Vin Diesel. And one day we're walking. We go inside the building from the cafeteria, and this kid comes out the door and sees me, kind of like bumps me, simultaneously. And he just looks down at me. He's like, "What the fuck are you looking at?" Right? And I'm like, "Motherfucker," and
Oh, squirt.
Yeah, I was pissed off, and then so whatever, it is what it is. So then the next day, the same thing happened. Only this time, Grant is now in front of me, so it happens to Grant, and the guy comes through the door, same motherfucker, looks at him and goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, bro," and just like steps to the side and walks away.
Well, you were like the little terrier that nips at people's ankles.
But I had to be. I had to be because I was a scrawny little punk. But anyway, if I knew then what I know now, it'd be a different story. But so now I'm like talking to people who you think know about nutrition. You're learning about nutrition. You're learning about exercise. You're learning about sport. And the prevailing thought was you had to gain weight. No matter how you gain weight, just gain weight, and then you want to cut down and lose weight. So I remember one guy saying, "Oh, eat those Tostino's pizzas, like 2 of them before you go to bed, because you'll turn that fat into muscle." Well, that's bullshit. I'm just going to tell you, that's a lot of bullshit. And then studying nutrition, when I was studying nutrition, it was plant strong, plant strong, plant strong, plant strong. So I was pretty close to being vegetarian. I think you could qualify me as vegetarian. And I know I've told you before, you don't need that much meat. You don't have to have that much protein. You have a lot more plants. And I was practicing that. I was eating plants out my ass. Farting every day, taking shits 4 or 5 times a day.
Out of your ass.
Oh my! But that's what happens, and you're uncomfortable. You're bloated. Started to gain a little bit of weight. I'm still exercising, 3, 4, 5 times a week, and I'm doing 2-a-days because I didn't have a life.
Yeah, but you were running cross country, so it wasn't like you were just doing some cardio. You were doing long distance training,
right? Which is one of the reasons why I couldn't see a big change in my body at that time.
Yeah. And
then in PT school, I'm still pushing that plant strong shit. And I'm trying to eat, and at that point I said, listen, the studying is so intense and I want to get everything I can out of this. I'm gonna, for the next year, I'm gonna stop exercising. I'm gonna spend all my time studying. And this is the analytical part. I felt guilty about getting on a bike or a treadmill and exercising when I could be, when I'm trying to study. I couldn't really concentrate on the studies if I was biking. I couldn't work out because that was an hour of time where I was working out and not studying. You understand me a little bit better over there? So I was studying and I was busting my ass, and it wasn't appreciated by any of the professors or even my classmates. Anyway, so I gained weight. I blew up. Like, I got really heavy. And even then I wasn't as heavy as I was. And I was like, well, maybe it's because I'm not eating enough plants. Maybe it's because I'm not training enough. Well, that last year in PT school, towards the end, I could ease up on the studying a little bit because I'm about to graduate. I'm about to take my boards. So my son's born. That time we looked at the pregnancy test and go, oh shit. I thought I pulled out.
Oops.
No, Brandon's no. Not an oops. The greatest oops that ever happened in my life.
That's it.
But and I really underestimated parenthood. I had no idea. You really don't have any idea of what life is like as a parent versus a single person until you go through it. Like none at all. And so at that point, and I was never good at time management. Time is now scrunched. I can't play tennis as much as I wanted to. I couldn't do those 2-a-days anymore. Working out for 2 to 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. Can't do that anymore. And now I'm working. So I'm in that rat race with you. I'm getting up and I had to commute 2 hours a day. Okay, to go to work. So 2 hours on the road. I'm working 8 to 10 hours a day. In our profession, that's not uncommon, right? 8 to 10 hours a day. And I'm trying to exercise, but I'm not finding time. And I'm gaining weight. I'm still gaining weight. I don't understand why I'm gaining weight. We move, same thing. I'm thinking that it's because I'm not eating enough plants. It's because I'm not exercising enough. I'm not being consistent. So now I'm consistent for like 2 years. And all that crap that you were going through at the time, I was looking at the literature. There wasn't a lot of literature on paleo. It was all narrative reviews or literature reviews, which doesn't mean shit, or commentaries. Those are just people's opinions.
Yeah.
They're not legitimate research, not high quality research. And so I'm like, well, there's no evidence. And that's why I wouldn't have been of help to you at all, because I'm brainwashed. I'm dogmatic. Everybody's got to be plant strong. Everybody, right? And so talking with you and Micah and Paul and Josh, and they're going keto, and they're talking about literature and research, and I'm like, I'm looking at that literature and research. There's not a lot of literature and research on this. It doesn't make sense. So I'm not trying to be critical, and I'm not trying to question you guys, but I'm also looking at it from an empirical perspective. Meanwhile, I'm looking at myself and I'm saying to myself, I'm training for 2 years consistently, 4 or 5 days a week. I'm running 3 to 5 miles a day. I'm lifting, and on top of that as well. And I'm very plant strong. Why is this not working? And I'm having the frequent 6 meals a day. I'm drinking water. I'm staying away from like sugars and beer and alcohol. You've seen me drink. You both have. I'm not a big drinker.
Like a bird.
That's right. You feel like it's a challenge.
I've had to clean up after you're drinking. Like, what do you left a whole beer.
Sometimes
no, don't give it back. Give it here.
Sometimes you would clean up while I was drinking, But like it didn't make any sense. Like, why am I gaining weight? Why am I feeling like shit? And you're told those 4 or 5 shits that you're taking every day, that's normal. That's good for you, And I'm like, is it? Like, it just something happened where I'm like, I'm thinking about nutrition the way I thought about physical therapy.
Well, okay.
Rocco apparently does not agree.
He did not like that.
He's pissed off. He's like, listen, look at my food dish, asshole.
It's like, this is a lame story. Let's move
right.
on.
He's like, I can't take this shit. I'm going to get some ice cream. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, I don't get it. And how can I be a practitioner, a physical therapist, and help people with nutrition? And to be honest with you, I can't be as holistic as I want to be with people because I don't have the time, but also maybe I don't have the knowledge base, and I don't want to be that physician who's a pulmonologist but smokes. I don't want to be the cardiologist who is fat and overweight and dying from a heart attack. But I'm this PT. I'm this PT who's trying his best to stay active and eat well, and I'm gaining weight, and I don't look the part, and I'm stressed out. I'm not sleeping, and it just gradually started to occur to me, I need to look at it from a different perspective. I need to go back into the literature, and I need to start asking more questions. And I need to think outside of the box like I would with physical therapy. And so at that point, I realized maybe plant strong isn't appropriate for everybody. And there's more and more data coming out. And so I was able to read more and more empirical evidence that started to show that is now showing that cholesterol is not a bad thing. That For you, you might be able to handle wheat, whereas me, I can't handle wheat. Maybe and one clinician who's from Cuba can handle sugar better than somebody who's from Ireland. And so once I started to understand that and see that literature, then it was a matter of, okay, let's try it for yourself. And it's an amazing transformation. You lose weight, and for me, it was very gradual. It wasn't like overnight, very gradual. Like you guys have said before, all of a sudden, you feel like there's a spring in your step. And I remember leaving work, and I wanted to run in the car, and I felt like I was 20 years younger. I could just spring and go, not out of breath, just effortless. And it was amazing. Then I started playing around. I was like, well, I'm going to reintroduce some grains into my diet because I cut out grains. And then within 1 day or 2 days, I was on a weekend, have a cheat day. I have some grains, and all of a sudden I'm 10, 15 pounds heavier. And we've talked about that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. All of a sudden, and then you feel like absolute shit afterwards. You love it at the time. You're like, oh, good, finally. And then right afterwards, you're like, what the hell? I'm 15 pounds heavier. And you feel like crap.
Did anything else change in your diet other than just adding those grains? Were you adding other stuff, ice cream and
I went to the exact opposite end of the spectrum. I went more towards the carnivorous perspective, where I basically said, I'm going to cut out all plants, and I'm going to do the things that I'm taught that were bad for you. So I'm having eggs and I'm basically drinking bacon, bacon fat, at this point. And I'm listening to Dr. Stephen Gundry about lectin proteins, and I'm learning about phytic acids, and really the biggest perspective that a lot of people don't talk about, that we will talk about eventually, is seasonal eating. It is not good for your body to expose itself to spinach every single day. There's a time of year that spinach is okay. There's a time of year that apples are okay. But if you're having apples every single day, especially those that are artificially matured, you might be doing your body more harm. There's a reason why animals in the wild don't eat a green apple. They know better. They're not supposed to be as smart as us, but for whatever reason, they know better. Plants, and this is something that was part of my revelation was, there's certain plants you just can't eat because it's poisonous. Plants have defense mechanisms. They're creatures. They're life too that want to just spread its seed, and so they're going to defend themselves. And when I was like, yeah, I knew that all along. Why didn't I think about that? Of course, they're going to have chemical reactions. They're going to cause changes in my microbiome, and they're going to affect my physiology and my anatomy because they don't want to be eaten. And I need to listen to that. And that's why the deer is not eating that green apple at the time that it's budding.
I think for me, it's more of a balance. It's more, a balancing act. Am I eating what I should? Am I eating a balanced diet? Am I eating, it's not all vegetables or all proteins.
Right.
It's a balance of those things. And for me, it's balance. And, I'm struggling with balance right now. I eat way more ice cream and cake than
I don't disagree with you, but I went to the extreme in order to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, you got to experience it. Yeah.
Right, and see how your body handles it. And it was amazing. I wasn't sleepy in the middle of the day. I didn't feel any crashes. I didn't eat the 6 meals a day. I would eat 1 or 2 meals a day. And you would think that you'd be more tired. No, I was just the opposite. Everything was the opposite. Felt amazing, lost weight. I was running faster, lifting heavier. I was at that time when I was gaining all that weight. As a parent, your kids bring home things, so you're getting sick quite often. And you probably remember this, right? Calling out, having to miss work because my kids are sick or I'm sick. I wasn't doing well. All of a sudden, I go to the opposite end, which is thought to be harmful. Don't do that. Don't have a high-fat diet. Have a high-carbohydrate diet. Well, when I went high-fat, high-protein, I'm not getting sick. It's a complete different change. and my body and everything else. Now, and then I fall off the wagon and I go back to having some, I haven't had ice cream in months. I'll have some ice cream.
Pizza.
And I'll have a pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah, my wife loves pizza. So, I'll have a bite of pizza.
Yeah, blame it on her. Yeah,
right.
it's your
Or
wife's
Jimmy
problem.
John's, right? I'll have some bread with my Jimmy John's. And, which, by the way, I don't know why they charge you the same fucking price for an unwich.
You get a piece of lettuce instead of a roll.
Yeah, it's the same price. It should be cheaper than the fucking bread. Anyway, that's my.
Well, they're charging like 39 cents for day old bread. So I mean, the bread they're so you take the bread off the sandwich. You want to take what, $2 off the sandwich?
Yes, take $1 or $2
so
off.
Take $1 or $2 off.
Different.
Get the unwich, and then you buy a 30-cent day old bread and pop it on the sandwich.
There you go.
They're marking that price way up anyway.
Of course
come
they
on,
are.
man. They buy a head of lettuce. They peel the outer layers off to use for the unwich. And they shred the inner portion.
Mm-hmm.
And Jimmy, come on, fucking Jimmy, cut the price down, okay? But even still, though, I go back to the carbohydrates, like the grains, mainly the grains. I've never thought grains were essential for your diet. Never. That whole bullshit about the grains being essential, I always thought it was bullshit because it doesn't make sense from a naturalistic perspective.
It comes to the seasonal eating.
Well, and from my perspective, I'm always naturalistic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very naturalistic person when it comes to medicine in general. Grains never made a sense in the sense that you have to have, 6 to 8 servings a day of grains. Never made sense to me. If you're out in the wild and you're trying to survive, where are you going to get the grains? If you don't have animal protein and fat, you better get the fuck out of there because you're done. You can't be a vegetarian and live on a homestead. It doesn't work.
You'd be a vegetarian through the winter.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Let's get a couple vegetarians or vegans and throw them out there in the middle of the winter at the Arctic on alone. Let's see how that goes. That would be a great show. History Channel. You remember who came up with that?
Yeah.
Right. Try to survive in the middle of winter on veganism. It's not going to work. So for me, it made sense. And so I usually now I'm balancing my diet mostly through meat and vegetables. I don't have a ton of fruits, but it's all seasonal. And, it's a different lifestyle, completely different. The problem is you get caught up in that rat race, you fall off the bandwagon, and you get caught up in the norm. And the norm is, hey, the more corn you have, the better you'll be. You'll be better off with more wheat.
Yeah.
Or how many times does the CEO for Coca-Cola or Pepsi go in front of Congress and says, a calorie of sugar from Coca-Cola is the same as a calorie of carbohydrate from a piece of broccoli. They literally say that, and people buy that bullshit, and it is not true at all. That white processed sugar is more harmful than the white processed cocaine that you put in your nose, unless you're putting sugar in your nose. It's just as bad. It's just as bad.
Yeah.
So
I'm where Joe was an hour ago. I'm about to pee on myself.
I was wondering what was dripping on the floor.
He said, well, that's Rocco.
So maybe this is the conclusion of this podcast. Todd just pissed on himself.
I just pissed on Rocco.
Rocco's gonna piss on the next piece of furniture. Let you know who owns this motherfucker.
This place.
All right. All right, I think it was great having you on.
Yeah, thanks for the conversation.
We're gonna have you on again.
Oh, don't tell me that.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care how many times you piss on yourself. I'm waiting for you to shit on yourself before I call it quits.
Well, if you keep me much longer, that may happen too.
How do you feel about that?
Not in my house.
So
wait for our new studio.
Yeah, there you go.
I got carpet in there. You got to be cautious.
Mm-hmm.
I have to take
like
that
the
fucker
dog
out.
wiping my butt on the carpet, scooting along.
At that point, you got worms.
Yeah,
you got to
sorry
rethink your diet. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, man. We're good. Is there anything that you want to say to close or anything like that?
I gotta pee real bad.
I gotta pee.
All right. So to make it real quick, we're gonna close by saying, of course, we want to say our thank yous to Joe Rogan, to Adam Meekins, to Greg Lehman. We want to say thank you to there's a couple other people. We'll make this quick. The other thing is we want people to remember that if there is any type of like donations made to Patreon, or if there's any type of monetization, 25% of those proceeds will go to cystic fibrosis, SMA, spinal muscular atrophy, and the Muscular Dystrophy Association. So if you're donating, even if it's just 10 cents a month, that's going to be very, very helpful for those organizations to help them with children and adults who are suffering from those conditions.
$1,000 a month is good too, though.
Whatever you can do, whatever you can offer, but that money is going to keep the podcast alive and to help the kids and adults in need from those genetic conditions. I just want to see how much longer he cringes. All right, we're out. We're good. We're done.
Peace out.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I love you.